Welcome to Creepin' It Real. I am Judah. I want to talk to you today about the 2002 horror film known as Deathwatch. Now, this film is a period piece. It was supposed to be in the trenches of the Great War. Now, most of you may know that it was known as the Great War before we had World War II. Then it became known as World War I. So I generally do not like war movies. It just isn't my thing. I've never been a big fan. And I've seen this movie, you know, as I'm flipping through Prime or wherever it is that I watched it, and I did watch this one on Prime, and I always just skipped over it simply because it's a war movie, and it just doesn't draw me in. But for some reason, over the weekend, I decided, you know what, I'm going to give this a go. In all honesty, it did take me 3 settings to get through this movie. I did mention that I am doing a big project at home, getting my building prepared for tuck point. So I've been spending my days out there grinding out the mortar. And so that's been keeping my time busy. And that's why it took me several sittings to get through this movie, on top of the fact that it really did not draw me in. So there's that. Before I really start talking about this movie, I am going to say that it's just average. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. The look, the feel, and the aesthetics of it were decent. It really, I've never been to Europe. I don't know what it was like. I've never been to war. I have no idea what war is like. But it felt real. The trenches, the rain, the pain, the fear of war, it all felt very real to me while watching this movie. And that aspect of the movie was done quite well, in my opinion. I would say like maybe the first 30 to 40 minutes, I had patience for the movie. I was sitting there waiting for the supernatural horror of it. We all know, I know some people would be like, war is horror. Yes, war is horror. But not all war movies are put in the category of horror, okay? So when I say waiting for the horror, that's not out of disrespect for those of you who have been in war. I understand from the sidelines that war is horror. And I respect that. And I respect what you potentially have experienced in that situation. And I in no way am trying to downplay the horrors that you have experienced in that. But when I say waiting for the horror to come, I'm simply mean within the confines of what we consider horror film. I was waiting for that. I was patient and, you know, okay with the interaction, the character development and drama as I waited for the classical cinema horror to engage the film. And I was okay with that. But when that horror portion did start revealing itself, I found it to be very underwhelming. I didn't really care about it. The effects of this movie, when it was just like dead bodies or someone being shot and seeing like brain matter or something, that was generally fine. But there was some aspects when barbed wire became living and active, and that was CG, and it was painfully CG. Now, some people have pointed out that this is a low-budget movie, but the budget was $4 million. And yes, when we compare that to most Hollywood films, that is low budget, but it's nothing to scoff at. And they did quite a good job with what they had to work with. But again, that CG really took me out of it. And I wish they could have figured out a different way to portray what it is that they wanted to get across instead of using this very chintzy looking CG barbed wire movement. Let's get into this trailer. I'm not sure how much I'll have to say. I've pretty much expended everything that I do have to say. This has a lot of actors in it that I recognize potentially from other things, but I couldn't call out. I don't know who they are. There's only one actor, Andy Serkis, as most of you would probably know, played Gollum from The Lord of the Rings. And I'm about to give you a very hot take. And this isn't meant to frustrate anybody. I grew up on Lord of the Rings. Now, my parents read the books to me, or I listened to the audiobooks. There was also the animated Lord of the Rings, which condenses things quite a bit. The one that is heavy on the rotoscope. And I watched that movie so many times. I mean, it was just always watching it. I loved it so much. So that was my love, the books and that animated. So when Peter Jackson, is that who directed Lord of the Rings, came out with his Lord of the Rings, I was excited. I looked, I enjoyed it for what it was, but I'm not one of those Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings super fans that yells, "It was the greatest trilogy ever." There was a lot of stuff that I hated in those movies, and I purchased them as a fan of Lord of the Rings, but it's not my be all end all cinematic, experience. Some things were done great, other things were just so bad, in my opinion. And I know some of you who potentially see this are going to freak out and think that I'm a piece of trash because how dare I talk badly about Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Look, it's a million times better than Rings of Power, okay? We can all agree on that. But, dude, my gosh, some of the effects in the Mines of Moria were so bad. When the orcs or goblins were crawling down those pillars, it looked like shit. Them running through the mines looked like shit. With those, I'm specifically talking about the high up sweeping camera shot where they're running, and you see all the pillars and all the goblins, orcs, coming in on them. That was just absolute garbage. And I just can't get over it. I won't watch those movies anymore. There was a time when I would occasionally pop them in and watch them, but I will not watch them anymore. I cannot say I'm a fan of those movies. They definitely are not, for me, the standard of what Lord of the Rings is. I would prefer to watch that animated movie. And yes, I know the animated movie is not, direct from the book either. I understand that. But when I saw it as a child, and so it ingrained itself on me. So that's why there is that appreciation. Whereas the Peter Jackson, I had more critical thinking, a young adult, teen. And, I'm seeing it through different eyes. So that's why it has not ingrained itself. It hasn't imprinted on me like a young goose on a human. So there's just that. But all this, and I know I'm talking about Deathwatch. Why am I talking about Deathwatch? Andy Serkis. Back to Andy Serkis. Okay, so Andy Serkis is in this. Now, because of Andy Serkis being in Lord of the Rings and Lord of the Rings being such a huge thing back when it was a huge thing, I felt Andy Serkis kind of became like overexposed in a way. Like everybody was always the praises of Andy Serkis. And I, quite frankly, became tired of it. Not because I think he's a horrible person or he's overrated, but I just got tired of hearing this man's name. A good comparison now would be like the freaking Pedro Pascal. My gosh, I don't care. I don't want to see this man in another movie. And I wish he would just shut the heck up. He has got some of the stupidest takes ever. This man is just, he's what do they call a man bimbo? A mimbo? Anyway, I'm not a fan of Pedro Pascal. And so Andy Serkis kind of had this overexposure feeling to me. And whenever anybody would bring up Andy Serkis, like somehow just because Andy Serkis is in this movie, it's going to be amazing. Andy Serkis is involved. Oh my gosh, it's going to be the greatest thing. No. So as soon as I saw Andy Serkis in this movie, I was just like, ugh. Now, he also plays a character, a very tropey character for war movies. So he had the negative of one being Andy Serkis that I just have this feeling of overexposure, even though it's like, okay, get over it, dude. It was so long ago. He doesn't have the overexposure that he did back during the Lord of the Rings time. Okay, get over it. But I still have those feelings. He plays this tropey character from every freaking war movie. There's always the one guy who's on the verge of losing it and is ready to kill everybody. You know, the guy that has the necklace of ears or fingers. That's who he plays in this movie. He was just over the top, ready to kill, destroy, and dispense suffering for no other reason than the fact that he was allowed to, because it's wartime. You know, it's not seen as a crime now. So that character in general, I always hate. So add that on top of the Andy Serkis thing. And like I said, I know all these are just hot takes. And I totally get people out there who might watch this and be like, oh, you're full of shit. Andy Serkis is the best. Well, he's fine. He's fine. I have no legitimate reasoning for having a frustration with him other than just that I felt the overexposure during that time period. Okay, so that's a massive nitpick as far as this movie goes. But let's watch this trailer. This whole review is not worth any more than what I've already said. 5 out of 10. You know, during the Great War in the trenches. Let's just watch this trailer. And let's see if I have anything special to say about it. And then we'll get on to looking at IMDb and seeing what others say about this movie.
Right, advance!
In the valley
Come on!
of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil.
This trailer is not doing it for me. Wow. The voiceover there who was reading that just was painfully bad in my personal opinion.
We have captured a forward German trench. We will hold this trench until we are reinforced. We must. That is our duty.
It's like a maze, Sarge. There's no front line or nothing.
There's something wrong with this place.
What are we talking about? Why don't we come back for the men? Why don't we come back for the trench?
Right, who's that?
Again, I just want to once again say I feel like the aesthetics of this movie are very good. The dark, rainy, dirty, muddy. I think it's very fitting for what it is that it was supposed to portray. But the movie, the whole experience of it just didn't pull me in and couldn't put me in a place where I would have to recommend this for anybody. There's nothing so shocking or so thought-provoking. And I do enjoy thought-provoking movies. I do enjoy movies that make you have to do some introspective thinking. And some reviews that I read, a lot of people enjoy this movie, feeling that it is a good thinking movie, that it's very metaphorical. And I can see that. But it wasn't enough. It was so, in my opinion, it was just, as far as like taking it the metaphoric route, it was just so on the nose, in my opinion, that it made it not deep enough. Does that make sense? I'm not sure. It's like I like to be able to think. If it's a movie that's supposed to make you think, I want to be able to think. I don't want the metaphor to just be so obvious that there's no work put into it. Which is almost somewhat funny because I didn't even see the metaphor. I just saw this for like a literal, people in the trenches trying to hold it until they had, backup come. But when I read some reviews and they pointed out the metaphor that they felt was there, I was like, yeah, I see that. And then when they pointed it out, it was just so glaring. I was like, yeah, that's just a little too on the nose for me. But yeah, I didn't I didn't see it until somebody mentioned it. So you could say that I'm full of shit, and I would be like, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Okay, back to this trailer.
It's death, and it's waiting for us.
You want to kill me?
Yeah.
Deliver them from evil.
Welcome to hell, Private Shakespeare.
Deathwatch.
I felt that trailer was boring. And though the aesthetics worked for me in the movie, I felt for my particular taste in movies, this was boring. 5 out of 10. Let's get to some reviews from IMDb. Let's see what other people have to say about this movie. Okay, I found one that I think is good. This is by Dragon Spider Lady. This was left in December 8th, 2002, so 2002. So she must have seen this possibly at the cinema. She starts off by saying, almost the best film I've seen in a very long time. I love this film almost as much as I love 28 Days Later. Now, here's another hot take that I'm going to throw out there. I was not a fan of 28 Days Later. It didn't do anything for me. To reply to an earlier comment, there is a bad guy. It's everywhere, permeating the trenches. It's called evil. But I won't say how it manifests itself other than it's quite a surprise. It really isn't. I don't want to trash on people who love movies, because that's what movies are here for. There are movies, stupid bad movies that I love. And honestly, as I'm saying this, I'm a little frustrated that I told people that they should watch Creatures from the Abyss. And that's a bad movie. There's nothing good about that movie. But I'm telling people to watch that movie simply to experience how hideous and bad it is. Deathwatch is not Creatures from the Abyss. Deathwatch has a lot of artistry involved, a lot of hard work put into it. They pull off the aesthetics amazingly, and the acting is serviceable for sure. Whereas Creatures from the Abyss is just bad from all levels. So there is a bit of me that is frustrated that I'm like, oh, you got to watch Creatures from the Abyss because it's so horrible, it's hilarious. Whereas Deathwatch is just a middle of the road war movie that features the psychological pain and trauma that these men are facing. And then they try to throw in some kind of supernatural thing. And I just didn't feel the supernatural thing really pulled itself off well at all. I felt that this movie may have worked better just as the psychological trauma that troops experience during these times of intense trial, that they're forced to abandon humanity, forced to kill, told that it's okay. It's a horrible thing. Anyway, I think it could have worked better just simply as that in the drama aspect of World War I. But as I mentioned already, I would have never even watched it at that point. They had to have the horror hook to get me to even watch it. But back to what Dragon Spider Lady has to say. The comment is just, I think she says, I'm not going to tell you how it manifests itself because it's a surprise. It wasn't. It wasn't. This film showed how gritty and disgusting the trenches must have been. It showed man's humanity and inhumanity to other men. How easily our minds can be led, and lets you think a lot about how a split-second act can affect not only your future, but that of others. That is very true. One of the most horrific moments, and this is a spoiler, is they were in the trenches trying to secure it, trying to make it a smaller place to defend. And when some confusion from sound occurred, some friendly fire happened. And it's heartbreaking to know that these kind of things occur. It's bad enough to be forced out and kill another human being. But to be faced with the fact that you took the life of a comrade, a friend, someone that you've been fighting alongside with, that is devastating. What that would do to you emotionally is insane. So this is featured in this film. This friendly fire, a very close-up personal friendly fire situation does occur. Okay, there was a little bit of overacting, but come on, the actors threw their heart into it. It had a good story, a lot of good twists, and an excellent ending. The ending was nothing special to me at all. If psychological horrors are your thing, go and see this now. If not, don't bother, because you'll give it a bad rating and put others off. Well, she nailed me right there, that's for sure. Dragon Spider Lady, she knew exactly what was going to happen for me. Except I'm not giving it a horrible review. I'm giving it an average score. A 5 out of 10. You know what I mean? I'll just read the very first one I see here. This says, don't waste your time. This is from Ken Hurlford. Words do not exist to describe how appalling this film is. Ouch. That's some strong words. The characters are one-dimensional and stock. Psychopath, religious one, experienced and duty-bound NCO, clueless officer. You know what? They're not wrong. They're not wrong. It was your usual suspects. And I even mentioned how Andy Serkis plays the psychopath. You know, it's in every movie. It's the trope. These war movies all have their trope, and they're not wrong. He nailed every single one of those. The acting is pathetic and the dialogue cliched. Don't call me sir, I'm a sergeant. I work for a living has got to have been in every Greenhorn experience soldier movie. I don't know. Like I mentioned, I'm not a big war movie guy, so I couldn't say. A horror movie? We spent most of the time switching between laughing and being desperate for the film to end. Okay. That's that. Ouch. Okay. Now I want to show you one other thing. If you ever visit IMDb, you'll see that there's a section called trivia. So I'm going to, and who knows if this is real, but I'm in the trivia section right here. And it says here, Andy Serkis said in audio commentary he has no idea what's going on in the film towards the third act. I personally feel that as somebody who was in the film saying that's pretty indicative of how it came across. And that's how it came across to me. It just was like, what's going on? I didn't feel the lead up to that third act justified the third act. I think I don't have any ideas that could make it better, but this movie just didn't do it for me. I felt it was better as just a World War I period piece drama movie about men in war versus the horror aspect. So there you have it. I gave you my review. It was a middle of the road horror movie. I told you that the one person thought it was appalling and just super, by the books, connect the dots. cliche movie, and then you had this other person that was Dragon Spider Lady, gave it a 10 out of 10, who thought it was spectacular, it was well acted. Where do you land? Have you seen this movie? What did you think? I want to hear your comments below. Also, if you have any suggestions, please, for movies that I should watch, please leave those in the comments. I appreciate your time. If you made it this far, you are a champ and you get a gold star. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you later.